Chapter 77, the Family Assessment Response Timeline. Yes. Now, it says here, when any person in his or her official supervisory capacity with a nonprofit or for-profit organization, has reasonable cause to believe that a child has suffered abuse or neglect caused by a person over whom he or she regularly exercises supervisory authority, he or she shall report such incident or cause a report to be made to the proper law enforcement agency, provided that the person alleged to have caused the abuse or neglect is employed by or contracted by or volunteers with an organization and coaches, all trains, educates, or counsels a child or children, or regularly has unsupervised access to a child or children as part of the employment contract or voluntary service. Ooch. The family assessment response timeline. Now, no one shall be required to report under the section when he or she obtains the information solely as a result of privileged communication provided in RCW 5.60.060. Nothing in the section shall limit a person's duty to report under A of this section, for the purpose of section following definitions apply, which official, supervisory capacity, a position, status, or role created, recognized, or designated by any nonprofit. Oops. Now, we could talk about the exploitation of Legina and Foursquare's liability right now. We could talk about Rotary as a not-for-profit or for-profit right now. Let's say I really did sue you. Yes. And I told you about the mandatory reporters, right? Professional school personnel known as civil rights coordinators. Yes. Registered or licensed nurses. Ooh, a pharmacist. Oh, employee of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Oh, it looks like the mandatory reporters that right now. Well, liaison specialist, living skills, Hope Center staff. The child has suffered abuse or neglect, he or she shall report such incident. Cause a report to be made to the proper law enforcement agency or to the department as provided in RCW 26.44.040. Yes. Now, these individuals, reasonable cause. Yes, yes. Person witnesses or receives a credible written or oral report alleging abuse. Did you get an email from me? Well, that would be considered a credible written report alleging abuse. And then neglect of a child regularly exercises supervisory authority? Yes. Now, when we go through the superintendents, yes. Is there any school district you don't consider it child abuse or neglect to have my sons in the wrong grades? You don't consider it child abuse or neglect to not have the obligations of the dissolution of marriage? Oh, you don't consider it child abuse or neglect to use forgeries of the court commissioner or the ex officio superior court clerk. You don't consider it child abuse or neglect to have their father arrested for crimes that he was not involved. Yes, I think that I can not only sue chapter 77. Um, an act relating to extending the timeline for completing a family assessment response, reenacting the amending of the RCW 26.44.030. Yes. Now, when I really consider it, okay, I gave you the documentation that it was malicious harassment to use a picture of my sister, Susan Bowers. Yes. I gave you the documentation of Mike's exploitation of his family. Yes. And then you decided that you're not going to allow me to speak to Marilyn about this. Now, when you think about the ordained having a supervisor, yes, who is it that supervises all the ordinations of all the various denominations of the United States? Is it the ordaining supervisory authority? Well, it looks like Foursquare is getting sued again. Now, the woman in this picture, yes, is not Mike Van Poyen's wife. Yes. This is my sister, Susan Bowers. Yes. And this may or may not be Legina, but Mike does not receive moral support from Susan Bowers. That's not his wife. Yes, it says that it is, but it isn't. Now, since this was in a Rotarian newsletter, I would say that Chapter 77 does cause some liability, yes, to the official supervisory capacity. Oh, means a position, status, or role created, recognized, or designated by any nonprofit or for-profit organization, either for financial gain or without financial gain, whose scope includes but is not limited to overseeing, directing, or managing another person. Well, it's not just Dennis getting sued now, is it? Why don't you get me all the corporate employees of Foursquare as a denomination? Because I'll sue every one of them, yes, that has any knowledge of issuing an ordination to a pastor, yes, that is abusing and neglecting his adopted daughter. And then, well, now it's every supervisory employee that does have the legal obligation to remove the ordination, yes. Now, I want to know what Marilyn knows about why. My sister Susan Bowers, yes, is in a picture, yes, with a little black girl where Mike said he's right now. Now, this happens to mention coaches. Yes, coaches, trains, educates, or counsels a child or children, and has regularly unsupervised access. Whoosh, whoosh. Well, I know there's Trish Batard, the superintendent of the Brennan School District, where my wife is employed. Yes, yes, yes. Where allegedly I violated the restraint provisions. Right, right, right. Where you did. I mean, the law says you did. You signed me up for welfare without my consent or acknowledgement. Yes, you did. Now, let's say I sued Trish. Exactly who is the supervisory authority of the superintendents of the various school districts? Oh, it's the Office of Supervision of Public Instruction. Now, when I emailed each of the executives in that office, I'm suing all of you. Now, when I emailed the attorneys in the Office of Supervision of Public Instruction, I'm suing each one of you because every attorney that is employed in every Department of Education in each and every state is not only liable for their attorney oaths, who, they are liable for any knowledge of the abuse and neglect of any child. Now I gave you some pictures. Yes. See, this is the pictures of the actual social security number and birth dates of my sons. And you said, well, they were. Well, now every attorney in the office right now, not only do you have the obligation of your attorney oath, yes, to support the laws of the state of Washington, support the Constitution of the state of Washington, and support the United States Constitution, you have the liability of being a supervisor capacity. Every attorney in that office has the legal obligation. Now, I did email them multiple times informing them that my sons were in the wrong grades. Yes. Well, then there's the coach Trey. Had to win all those football games. Well, as a coach that has had unsupervised now coaches in each and every school district of the United States. I went through the coaches. Yes, he did. Now,